ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. حسبنا الله ونعم الوكيل، نعم المولى ونعم النصير. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين، خاتم النبيين، شفيع المذنبين، رحمة للعالمين، مولانا وسيدنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المنتجبين المظلومين الهداة المهديين، لا سيما بقية الله في الأرض، أرواحنا له الفداء، ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في قرآنه المجيد: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ومن يهاجر في سبيل الله يجد في الأرض مراغما كثيرا وسعة، ومن يخرج من بيته مهاجرا إلى الله ورسوله ثم يدركه الموت فقد وقع أجره على الله وكان الله غفورا رحيما. For Muhammad wa Muhammad salawat. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. We thank Allah for giving us the life, the energy, the tawfiq, the opportunity to be here once again on this 5th night of Muharram to commemorate the shahadat of our beloved master, Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam Hussain alayhi salatu wassalam. May He accept our azadari, our matam, our marsiya, our noha, our majlis, our crying, our lamenting. Yesterday's discussion took us to the first and second levels of the nafs. We discussed the various characteristics regarding nafs-e ammara. And we said that nafs-e ammara is that nafs which is absolutely full of animalistic tendencies. It is so full of evil, and it is pushed towards evil, it is pushed towards fulfilling carnal desires, such as over excessive sleep, over excessive physical relations, over excessive food. All of the indulgences are characteristic and hallmarks of nafs-e ammara. Someone in the state of nafs-e ammara will not even be able to understand the concept of guilt and remorse. You go and tell him or her that this is wrong, don't do this. They will not be able to understand it. They will in fact not understand even that they are doing wrong. This is nafs-e ammara. We took the name Ammara from the Holy Quran, where Allah says, Inna nafsa la'ammaratun bisu. The nafs surely commands towards evil. And that is exactly what nafs-e ammara does. Then we moved from nafs-e ammara into something called nafs-e lawwama. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا أُقْسِمُ بِنَفْسِ اللَّوَّامَةِ. I swear by the nafs which is accusative. Nafs al-lawwama is that level of nafs, above nafs ammara. When now the person may still be doing sins, he may still be doing bad things, however now his conscience is active. His conscience makes him feel guilt. And it is the first step in feeling remorse and regret and wanting to change. Because if there is no feeling of guilt, then a person will never want to change. He will always think that he is in the best position, and he will not want to change at all. We then discussed that there is a relationship. This is where we start our discussion for this evening. There is a relationship between nafs, which is a non-physical thing in our body, the body itself, and the brain. What happens is when we have nafs al-lawwama, and it gives us feelings of guilt, and we choose to ignore our guilt, it gives us 2 or 3 different characteristics which come upon us. Let us explain this more with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. The first thing that happens to a person when he ignores his nafs and what his nafs is telling him is that he feels a sense of depression, anxiety and loneliness. In the hadith we read, Man asbaha wa akbaru hammihi ad-dunya. Whoever starts his day and his thought, his mind is occupied with the world. I will earn, I will sell, I will buy, I will trade, I will eat, I will sleep. If he is concerned with worldly attachments, then Allah gives his heart 4 characteristics. Hamman la yanqati'u anhu abada. A sadness which never separates from him. Was shughlan, a busyness, a sense of being always busy and things to do. Wa faqran, and poverty, always feeling that he is less, he has something less, he needs something more, never satisfied. And finally, wa amalan, a dream, a hope, a desire that he will never be able to reach. What happens to a person in this situation is that he is always wanting more, he's never satisfied, and therefore he is not happy. Even on a worldly level, he is not happy. We say in Arabic, خَسِرَ الدُّنْيَا وَالْآخِرَةِ. He has lost his world and his akhirah. A non-believer could at least achieve happiness in the world. But someone who professes and says, I am a mu'min, I am a believer in the Ahlul Bayt, I am a Shia of Mawla Ali, and doesn't follow his nafs, basically he has lost in both worlds, dunya and akhirah. He's not getting in the world and he's not getting in akhirah either. Now, regarding this thing called faqr, poverty, the hadith mentions that one of the 4 things that is given to a human being when he ignores his nafs is a sense of poverty. Our first Imam, Amirul Mu'mineen alayhi salatu wassalam, he tells us that poverty is actually of 3 different types. Each type is worse than the one before. He says, the most easy type of poverty, the least type of poverty, is faqrul mal. Poverty of wealth, physical money, dawlat, mal. That is the least. Worse than that is faqrul badan, poverty of health. You may have lakh, crore, whatever it is, you may have millions, but if you don't have the health to enjoy it, Mawla Ali says this is worse than poverty of wealth. But he says the third and most, the worst one of them all, the worst type of poverty is faqrul ruh. It's when your soul is poor. It's when you haven't gathered enough wealth in your soul to take with you to the next life. That is the worst type of poverty. Now, what happens is that when a person, again, ignores his nafs, his love of Allah, because his nafs is telling him that he is searching for Allah. Every time we feel guilt on something, every time we understand that I've done something wrong, it is actually my soul telling me that you need Allah, you need your Lord, you need God. If I choose to ignore this, then what happens is very interesting indeed. Love remains. Love remains because every insan needs love. He needs care, he needs compassion, he needs mercy. Love remains. God is removed. What is your soul telling you? Your soul is telling you that you feel guilty because you need God. It is telling you, go back to God, do tawbah, do istighfar, ask God for forgiveness. But because I remove God, but my love remains, now my love will attach onto something else. Because I have taken God out of my mind, I put something new there in the place of God. It could be wealth. This is why some people spend their lives loving wealth. They go through their whole lives, all they can think about is gathering money. For others, it becomes pleasures and shahwat and desires. So all their life they chase things which give them pleasure, physical pleasure. For other people it could be power. They are power hungry. So all their lives, they go through life loving power. They will trample upon others. They will be corrupt in society because their soul was telling them to love God. They ignored the soul. They attached the love onto power. So qudrat becomes something very important to them. Other people chase izzat, honor. It is my honor to do this. It is my honor to do that. Without any sense, without any intelligence. So all they do is throughout their life they chase honor and izzat. Allah says, attach yourself to me and you will get all of these things anyway. It comes as a byproduct of loving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So, what happens, brothers and sisters, is I'm going to tell you a very special secret that the Ahlul Bayt have taught us. With one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Now, do I have your full attention? This is a little bit, not difficult, but the way it is put into language, you need to have your brains very carefully switched on. We go through life and we gather different things. We gather health, we like health. We gather wealth, we like wealth. We have power, we have position, we have authority. All of these things we like, we enjoy, so we gather them. At the same time, each of these things that we are gathering has a stress attached to it. Okay? So, when I have money, I enjoy it. But I have a stress at the back of my mind, what if I lose my money? So that is a little bit of stress which comes with every single thing that I have in my life. I have a child, I enjoy the child, but I have a stress. What if my child is not safe? What if someone abuses him? What if he goes astray? I have a car, I like my car, but then I think, what if I'm driving my car in the narrow streets of Mumbai and it gets scratched? So I have these stresses along with my possessions. Every possession we have is accompanied by a stress. Because there is a fear of loss. Whenever you have fear of loss, you have a natural stress in your mind. There is one thing that is not subject to loss. So doesn't it make sense that I should love that thing which is not subject to loss? Power can be lost, honor can be lost, family can be lost, spouse can be lost, house can be lost, money, everything can be lost. So why don't I love Allah which can never be lost? Allah can't be lost. Allah can't be reduced. Allah can't be diminished. Allah won't go away. Allah won't get a scratch. Allah won't be repossessed. Allah won't get bankrupt. Why don't I love that thing which is not subject to loss? Once insan accepts this formula, that I must love that which cannot be lost, and he attaches himself to God and Allah, then what happens is he will come to stage 2. He will say, now I have something in my life which is just one-way traffic. It's just love. There's no stress of loss. Then stage 2 comes along. Stage 2 is, so why should I love those things which are subject to loss? If I am able to love Allah which is not subject to loss, then all of a sudden money, family, power, honor, house, car, wealth, etc. I don't need to love them anymore. They are not worthy of my love, because all they are doing is giving me stress at the same time. Why don't I love that which gives me no stress? Because it is subject to no loss. You see the beauty of loving God. You will never have stress because it cannot be lost. Because it cannot be lost, you will not love those things which can be lost. So you go through your life and all of a sudden, your life becomes a little bit stress-free. You lose these attachments. You lose these dependencies in life. Therefore you become a stronger character. So when the time comes that Allah tests you with a loss, and believe me, Allah tests every single one of us. If someone thinks they can live life without suffering difficulty, it's not possible. Difficulty and loss of material possessions is part of life. If we think, sometimes I know in our culture, me as well, I'm included in this, we sometimes think, if I recite this dua, then I will become rich. Or if I recite this dua, then I will become healthy. Or if I recite this, then this will happen. Yes, dua is extremely powerful and important. But let me give you one example with the salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. There is a doctor. Doctor says to Allah, "Oh Allah, grant me more rizq." Okay? Doctor says, "Oh Allah, grant me more rizq." His next door neighbor says, "Oh Allah, grant me health." Who does Allah answer? Doctor's rizq is dependent on the other person's ill health. Does he grant doctor rizq and make him unhealthy? Does he grant him health and make the doctor not get his rizq? Someone somewhere has to lose something. It is the natural way the world works. If something is born, something will die. If someone gains, someone will lose. If someone profits, there is a loss. This is the natural order of our society. Therefore, when we say to ourselves that I don't want to lose, I don't want to become unhealthy, I don't want to be bimar, I don't want to have a loss of wealth, loss of honor, I don't want anything to happen in my business or job, I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. So it's better that we prepare ourselves from the beginning to say, when the loss does come, because it is going to come, in one way or the other, it is going to come, oh Allah, let me not be attached to it, that I suffer this tension and anxiety over it. If I'm not attached to it, it doesn't matter. I won't really lose any sleep over it. Now, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in Hadith Qudsi, La yasi'uni ardi wa la sama'i. Allah is so loving towards us, brothers and sisters. He says, I cannot fit inside my earth nor in my heaven. La yasi'uni ardi wa la sama'i, bal yasi'uni qalbu abdi al-mu'min. The thing that can contain me is the heart of my pious servant. Nothing in this universe can contain Allah, but the qalb of the mu'min can contain Allah. What Allah wants is that the other things in the house of the heart should be empty. He cannot exist in the heart where there are other gods present. If I have a god of wealth, health, izzat, mal, dawlat, qudrat, he's not going to be there. He'll say, there's no room for me here. I don't know where to be here. This is full of other junk. Clear the junk. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can come into that heart. With one salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Therefore, When we want to experience a life which is free from stress and free from tension and anxiety, we should attach ourselves to Allah. We will see our improvement in health, in mind and in soul. The Quran says, Inna awliya Allah la khawfun alayhim wa la hum yahzanun. The friends of Allah are those who do not have any fear, nor do they grieve. Why don't they grieve? Don't they have challenges in their life? Of course they do. But they have lost their attachments to these other things. Therefore, their only attachment is to Allah. And Allah never lets anyone down. He will never let anyone down. Therefore, the friends of God will remain attached to God, and they will have a relatively stress-free life. Now, brothers and sisters, we move on to the topic of this evening, which is the art of staying awake. The art of staying awake is all about the consciousness and the awakening of the soul. Here we do not mean the physical staying awake from sleep and slumber. We are talking about the soul being very, very awake. To demonstrate this further, I want to give you an example from the life of one of the great alims of our recent history, Shaheed Baqir Sadr. Definitely you have heard his name. Shaheed Sadr was a Sayyid, he was a very young person, he was a genius of his time. He wrote books which even today people are finding it difficult, that how did this genius come up with these ideas in that time? He was so advanced. He's written things on philosophy, on economics. He was a very, very bright individual. He lived at the time of Saddam in Iraq. Now at the time, Saddam, as you know from the history, Saddam was extremely cruel to the followers of Ahlul Bayt. He would impose many cruelties and conditions upon the Shias. Some of the ulama took a stance and they spoke out against him. One of them was Shaheed Sadr. Shaheed Sadr has a student called Kamal Haydari, who is alive right now. He's one of the teachers in Khoja. Kamal Haydari narrates that when we saw our teacher Shaheed Sadr beginning to speak out against Saddam, we asked him and we told him, we said, Ustad, oh my teacher, you are doing this. You know that Saddam will not leave you. He will take revenge on you and upon your family. He will assassinate you, he will kill you, he will torture you. Shaheed Sadr's reply is very powerful. Shaheed Sadr says, I know that Saddam is not going to leave me alone. But what I believe is that in every time, in every zamana, from the followers of Hussein, there must rise up one like Hussein, who is ready to spill his pure blood for the awakening of society. And I believe that in this time, that pure soul and pure blood is my blood. Now, this is what you call a very awake, switched on individual. His soul was awake. His soul was thinking. His soul was looking at the different options and ready for sacrifice. Now, in the time of Imam Hussein, alayhi salatu wassalam, it was Imam Hussein's job to awaken the people. Imam says, if the Muslims are prepared to allow a person like Yazid to be in power, فَعَلَى الْإِسْلَامِ السَّلَامِ, then Khuda Hafiz to Islam, it's gone. If the people of the community of the Muslim Ummah are ready to accept Yazid type of person as the leader, then I say Khuda Hafiz to Islam. It's gone. What Imam Hussein does is that he spills his pure blood to awaken society. Let me ask you a question. We heard yesterday about Ubaydullah al-Juhfi and Janab Hur. Janab Hur spent the night in thinking, in deep thought. His nafs al-lawama influenced him into guilt. He started to think and he came over to the side of Imam Hussein. Ubaydullah al-Juhfi had the opportunity to join Imam's army. He refused. He said, I have a wife, I have children, I have other things, I cannot join you. So, here we understand that Imam Hussein was concerned about the whole ummah. Was he, Nauzu billah, astaghfirullah, could we ever say this? Imam Hussein was concerned only about his household. He was concerned only about his children. He gave his children. He was concerned about each and every one of us here. He was concerned that when I give my life, will my azadars not only mourn for me, will they change for me? Will they change themselves and their society for my sake? Because that is what I want to do. So he expects the same from us. Therefore, the next level of nafs, we have discussed Amara, we'll come into Lawama. Now we go one step higher. The third stage of nafs is Mutafakkira, the thinking soul. This is where a person, once he is influenced by his guilt and remorse, he begins to think, and through his thinking, using his aql and intellect, he begins to understand what is right and wrong. He begins to now move towards Allah. Lawama was the stage where you have the drive to move towards God. Mutafakkira is now the actual, practical movement towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That is nafs mutafakkira. One example from the lives of the ulama. You remember a couple of nights ago, I told you a story about the student of Sheikh Ansari. He has the dream, he sees Shaitan. Shaitan has lots of different ropes that he's pulling people with. This is now part 2 of that story. So after seeing the dream, if you remember what happens in the dream, he says to Shaitan, do you have a rope for my teacher, Sheikh Ansari? Shaitan says, I do have a rope, but I'm not successful. I cannot tempt your teacher. I try a lot, but he always escapes from me. So now this is part 2. After the student has woken up, he meets his teacher, Sheikh Ansari. And he says to Sheikh Ansari, I had this dream. And in this dream, Shaitan mentioned you, that he's trying to tempt you, but you keep escaping him. Have you had any experiences recently where you have escaped from Shaitan? Sheikh Ansari says, yes, actually now that you mention it, I do remember something just 2 days ago when you had the dream. And what Sheikh Ansari says is that he narrates his own story of how he escaped from Shaitan. He says, he has a land, a piece of zameen, a land, from which he gets income. Through agriculture and farming, he gets an income from that land. He said to the student that since the last few months, my land that I have is not giving me that income anymore. Therefore, my home economy, the money that I have for my own family, is greatly reduced. I have tangi, I have some tightness in my home. We are not able to spend properly. We are not able to buy food properly. We are not able to use things properly because we have a lack of money. For the last few days, we have been going to sleep hungry. Myself, my wife, and even my children. We have no money, we don't know what to do. We are waiting for something to happen to give us this income. But we are suffering since the last few days. So the other night when we had this dream, things had become very, very difficult for us. We were really hungry, the children were suffering, the children were crying. My wife was complaining to me that we have nothing. So then she said to me that isn't there any way we can go and get some money from somewhere? So I replied to her that I cannot think of any other place except for one. In my possession I have khums money. Khums money is given to a mujtahid, to spend then as they wish, the Sehme Imam part. So he says, I have Khom's money with me, but I have never touched my Khom's money. I've always given it to good causes and charities, and I don't want to start now by taking it. So guess what the wife says? The wife makes a very, very good point. She says, you know what? You can't take it. But pretend, just pretend for a minute that I am not your wife. Pretend for a minute that I am a normal, common mu'minah, coming to you, my mujtahid, for assistance. You would help such a person, wouldn't you? He says, yes, that's a very good point. If a lady came to me and she showed me proof that she is needy, then I would give her some to relieve her situation. So she says, then look at me like this. Treat me as a normal mu'minah coming to you for help. Sheikh Ansari starts to think. Nafse mutafakkira, the thinking soul. He starts to think. He goes towards the Khums money. His hand reaches out, and then he stops. And now he has a thought. He starts to think. He says to himself, no, I have made a principle in my life that I will never touch the public money which has been given to me. Then he has another thought. He says to himself, I know what? Let me take a loan from the Khums. Not even take it properly, just a loan. Again his hand goes towards the Khums and he stops. He says, no, this is wrong. What if I die? What if I forget? What if I am ill? What if I am never able to pay this back? I have a principle that I will never use these public funds for myself. So he turns away. Again he shuts the place where he keeps the Khums. He goes to his wife and he convinces her. He says, give me one more night of sabr. You keep sabr, I will keep sabr, the children will keep sabr. Let us have one more night of hunger, and then we will see what happens tomorrow. That, brothers and sisters, is nafse mutafakkira. With the guilt which comes to the heart, also the intellect has to play a role of thinking about things. Deep, deep thinking. And looking at the different alternatives. Now, we can apply this to the life of Imam Hussein alayhi salatu wassalam. What happens in Imam Hussein's time is that he's in a society which is going towards spiritual suicide. People have forgotten ethics. People have forgotten the ethics of religion, the principles of religion. Imam Hussein stands in this society and he awakens them. They were like sleepy people, sleepy individuals. We say in our language, they were ghafil. They had ghaflat, heedlessness. So what is ghaflat? It's when, you go to work, you go to business, or you go to college, you come home, you're very, very tired. What do? You see your sofa in front of you, you're dying to sit down, you sit down, maybe you put the TV on or something like that, and you're half in sleep and half awake, you don't really know what's going on around you. That is what we mean by ghaflat. Looking awake, but really your brain is switched off. The people in Imam Hussein's time were ghafil, they had ghaflat, they were heedless, they were sleepy. What Imam Hussein does, and what the Ahlul Bayt does, is they introduce insan to insan. They showed me what I am, they showed you what you are. They allowed insan and human being to understand our worth, our qimat, our value. I ask you a challenge. Let me challenge you on something. If I were to ask you some questions right now, not difficult Islamic questions, just general questions. For example, why have we been created? What's going to happen after death? How did Allah create the universe? What is my objective in life? Where am I going in life? What is my overall plan in my life? Many of us in this room will find it difficult to answer these questions. We generally tend to live in a 24-hour cycle, or a 7-day cycle, or a 30-day monthly cycle. We have not yet thought about these deeper, more philosophical questions. Take it one step further. Go out into the streets of this city or any city in the world. Stop someone. Ask them, brother, what is your objective in life? Why were you created? Where are you going in life? Okay, the first thing is they'll think you're crazy for asking these questions. But really, they will not have time or concentration to answer. They will not. Because the human being doesn't stop to think and answer these difficult questions. The Ahlul Bayt, starting from the Holy Prophet, throughout the Imams, came to answer these questions. They gave us a triangular structure of our universe and our life. The triangular structure is as follows. On one side of the triangle, you have dunya. On another corner, you have akhirat. And at the top corner of the triangle, you have insan. They linked these three together. There is a relationship between insan, dunya and akhirat. But the key part of this triangle is human being, the insan. Insan decides what happens in dunya. Insan decides what happens in akhirat. Insan is the most important part of this universe. This is why we call insan ashraful makhluqat. Better than angels, better than arsh, better than jannat. Anything that Allah has made, insan is better. Because insan determines what jannat is. Insan determines what the world is. Let me give you a couple of examples and then we move on. Number one, someone comes to the presence of Amir al-Mu'mineen, Mawla Ali alayhi salatu wassalam. And the person begins to abuse the dunya. He says, oh, the dunya is bad, and the dunya is hopeless, and the dunya is valueless. Mawla says, have you understood what dunya is? Mawla says, ad-dunya daru sidqin liman sadaqaha. Dunya is a house of truth for one who recognizes it properly. Dunya. We always hear, dunya is bad, dunya is evil. Not necessarily. If you treat it correctly, dunya is like what Mawla says. He says, Matjaru awliya illah. Dunya is the marketplace of the friends of Allah. They come to dunya to get closer to God. Is that such a dunya which is bad? Is that dunya evil, where I spend my time getting closer to my Lord? Not at all. Masjidu ahibba illah. It is the mosque of those who love Allah. I want to pray namaz now. Am I going to go into the sky and pray? I'm going to pray here, in the dunya. When I want to do matam for Imam Hussein, I'm going to do it here, in dunya. When I want to read Quran, I will do it here, in dunya. Dunya is a place of love for those who love God. Mahbitu wahyillah. It is the place where the wahy of Allah descends. And we call dunya such an evil place when it has these characteristics. If we learn how to treat dunya properly, it is a wonderful place. It is a place where I commit spiritual jihad. But if I mistreat it, then it becomes a place of spiritual suicide. And now we move on to akhirat. We want salawat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Dunya is for insan. When the last insan goes away from this world, you know, in English we have a saying, last one out, turn off the lights. Last one who leaves, turn off the lights. Quran says the same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, When insan leaves the world, when the last human being dies, is a shamsu kuwirat. The sun will be put out. وَإِذَا النُّجُومٌ كَدَرَتْ. The stars will be made black. The lights will go off. The mountains will crumble. The earth will be changed into a different place ready for mahshar. Why? Insan has left. The last insan has sailed from the shores of the world. There's no need for world anymore. Now we enter akhirat. What about akhirat? Surely akhirat is Allah's place. It is Allah's domain, isn't it? In one way yes, in one way no. Allah has created the space of akhirat. What is in akhirat is dependent upon us, insan. Are we sending before us palaces, trees, gardens, rivers, fruits? Or are we sending before us fire, lava, disgusting things to eat, all these torments and punishments? I decide, you decide, we decide. What we put in akhirat is up to us. So for example, the Holy Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says to his ashab, whoever recites zikr of Allah, for every zikr they recite, trees are planted for that person in heaven. So one sahabi says, Ya Rasulullah, in that case, I have done so much zikr in my life that I must have forests and jungles of trees. Holy Prophet says, yes, but then don't burn them down. He says, how would I burn them? He says, through doing gibat. You may be planting trees with zikr. Don't burn them with gibat. Is this a future? Will I go to heaven and become a farmer and start planting trees? It's happening now. Now things are happening. Now my destiny is being created for me in the life hereafter. And I can change the destiny through tawbah and istighfar. I can change my future akhirat through my actions. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. إِذَا زُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَأَخْرَجَتِ الْأَرْضُ أَثْقَالَهَا وَقَالَ الْإِنسَانُ مَا لَهَا يَوْمَئِذٍ تُحَدِّثُ أَخْبَارَهَا. When the day that the earth will shake, and insan will say, what is going on? And it will be said to him that this is the day that everyone will be gathered to see what they have done. فَمَنْ يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ. This is a brilliant ayat if you want to put this in your mind. When someone goes into Qiyamah, in Akhirat, he will see the action that he performed. Allah does not say he will see the result of the action he has performed. This is a really subtle point. Quran says, whoever does even an atom, even a zarra of good, will see it, will see that good action. That action will be sent over there, ready to be received in a new form. Whoever does an atom of bad will see it. That means the deeds I do now are being sent there in real time, not in the future. It's happening now. Therefore, to summarize what we have discussed, insan is the key part of the structure of the universe. He is the most powerful thing in dunya. He is the most powerful thing in akhirah. Of course, Allah is the creator, but amongst the creation, insan is the most powerful. He decides the way his dunya is. Is it a place of evil or is it a place of goodness? He decides what his akhirat is. What things are waiting for him in the akhirah. Now these ideas, as you can imagine, in a society that is known as the society of Jahiliyyah and ignorance, these ideas were too much. People couldn't take them. People didn't understand them. This is why they started to call the Holy Prophet names. Na'udhu billah, astaghfirullah. They would call him like he's a mad person. They would make fun of him. Why? Because they couldn't take these ideas. Their minds were not ready. The Holy Prophet introduced them to things But they were too much in their comfort zone. They didn't want to listen to the words of the Holy Prophet. On the day of Ashura, Imam Hussein goes and stands in front of the forces of Yazid. Imam Hussein begins to deliver a khutbah, a speech. Guess what they do? They begin to whistle and make silly noises and they start to clap. Because they could not bear the words of Imam Hussein. They did not want to hear these amazing things. They don't want to hear those things that take them out of their comfort zone. Inshallah, we will finish this part off tomorrow in the lecture. At the moment, let us turn our attention towards the beloved friend of Imam Hussein, Hazrat Habib ibn Mazahir. We say on this night, Salam to that old friend of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein, Hazrat Habib. When Imam Hussein meets Khur towards Karbala, Imam Hussein tells Khur, we wish to go to Kufa. Khur says to Imam Hussein, I cannot allow you to go to Kufa. My orders are to prevent you from going to Kufa. Imam says, look Khur, I have letters with me from the people of Kufa. You have no right to stop me. They have invited me into their city. Therefore I can go and no one should stop me. Khur says, I do not know about these letters. I cannot act upon these letters. Then Imam Hussein looks at the faces of the army members of Janabi Khur, and he sees the people in the army who wrote the letters to him. Imagine, someone invites you to their city and then stands in front of you with a spear and a sword. Imam says, Ya Shabath ibn Rabi, Shabath son of Rabi, Ya Hajjar ibn Amjad, O Hajjar, Ya Qais ibn Ash'ar, Ya Yazid ibn Harith. You people are standing here in front of me. I have your letters in my possession. Now you dare to stand in front of me with your swords drawn, with your spears pointing towards me. Were you not the ones to write these letters to me, inviting me to your city? But Khur carries on with the orders and pushes Imam Hussein towards Karbala. And then Imam Hussein begins to set up his camp. If you look at the way Imam Hussein sets up the camp of Karbala, you will see the unique position of Imam Hussein. Imam Hussein is at the very center of that camp, because every person in that camp was absolutely, madly in love with Imam Hussein. Whether it was the young children, whether it was the boys, whether it was the girls, whether it was the ladies and the sisters, whether it was the menfolk, whether it was the elderly, no matter who it was, they were all madly in love with Imam Hussein. They say, brothers and sisters, that the love of Imam Hussein does not end in Karbala. It is in the heart of every single mu'min, this love of Imam Hussein. No, let me go one stage further. It is in the heart of every mu'min and also in the heart of every angel. In Jannah we have a riwayat, we have a hadith which says that not all of the angels are permitted to come to the earth. Some are prevented. At one level of heaven, there is like a queue of angels waiting to come to earth. And when they are asked, Ya Malaikat Allah, O angels of Allah, why do you wish to go from heaven to earth? They say, we wish to go only for the ziyarat of Imam Hussein. And one group is given permission, and they come down to the earth. And before they go, the other group which has not yet been given permission, they say, when you go to Karbala, do us one favor, pick up some soil from Karbala and bring it back to us. We want to feel this soil. We want to smell this soil. We want to have the experience of going to Karbala. This is the love for Imam Hussein. The person we remember this evening, his name means lover. His name is Janab Habib ibn Mazahir. Janab Habib was a person of Kufa. He lived in Kufa. And it is narrated that as the forces of Yazid begin to gather in Karbala, you know, the forces came in different battalions, different sections. One section was brought to Karbala by Shimr. One section was brought by Khurmala. One section was brought by Umar Sa'd. One section had already reached there by Khur. These were the commanders in the army of Yazid. As the forces gathered, there were at one time 30,000 people on the side of Yazid. And on the side of Imam Hussein, there are like 72 to maximum 100 people, men who can bear arms. Bibi Zainab at this time comes to Imam Hussein. She says, Ya Akhi, oh brother Hussein, look at the forces of Yazid. Look at our few numbers. Oh Hussein, can you think at this moment, is there anyone that we can call to come to our aid? Imam Hussein begins to think, and he thinks, and then Janab Zainab says, oh Hussein, remember with me when we were children in the streets of Medina and in the streets of Kufa, there used to be one person I remember. He was older than you, but he loved you so much. His name was Habib. Hussein, I remember the times when you would fall on the ground. Habib would be there. He would pick you up. He would nurse your wounds. He would make sure you are okay. Hussein, my brother, send the message to Habib. I am sure with his love for you, he will not refuse you. Imam Hussein sends the letter to Kufa with the messenger. The letter reaches Habib. The messenger sends to Habib the message and says, this is a message for you from Hussein, son of Fatima. Habib looks at the letter. He kisses the letter. He puts the letter onto his eyes and he begins to read. He reads the words of Hussein. Oh Habib, my dear friend, this is a message from Hussein, the one who is lonely in Karbala. Oh Habib, we are alone. Will you come for our help? Habib puts down the letter and begins to cry. His wife says, whose letter is this? Habib says, this is from the son of Fatima. The wife asks, what does he ask? He says, he is stuck in Karbala. He is alone. He has asked me to join him. What do you say? She says, do not delay, for he has asked for your help. Do not delay, do not worry about us. Habib prepares his horse. He gets on his horse. He calls his slave. He says to the slave, now I set you free. I will not require you anymore. The slave says, Mawla, where are you going? He says, I am going to Karbala. My beloved Hussein has called me. The slave says, Mawla, this is not justice. If you go for Hussein, why do you leave me here? I will come with you to Hussein. And Habib and his slave ride towards Medina. And when they reach Medina, when they reach Karbala, and they come to Hussein, everyone upon seeing Habib becomes happy. Everyone gathers around Habib. They remember this beloved of Imam Hussein, the friend of Imam Hussein. And with this noise in Karbala, Janab Zainab turns to Janab Fizza and asks, oh Auntie Fizza, what is this noise I hear? This is the noise of happiness. Janab Fizza goes to look and she comes back and she says, my dear lady Zainab, this is the news that Habib has come. Zainab says, oh Auntie Fizza, can you go to Habib and say Zainab is saying salam? And when Fizza says to Habib that Zainab sends salam, Habib begins to cry and says, now I understand. When Hussein said that he was alone, even Zainab is sending her salams to a ghulam, to a slave ajrukum ala Allah. On the morning of Ashura, Habib comes to Imam Hussein before the Ahlul Bayt have taken their turn of Shahadat. Habib comes to Imam Hussein and says, Ya Aba Abdullah, oh my beloved friend Hussein, do you give me permission to go and fight for you? Imam Hussein reluctantly gives the permission, and Habib goes out into the battlefield. They say that Habib was able to send to Jahannam 62 of the forces of Yazid, but at the end of the day, this is an elderly man, this is an old man. He becomes tired, he becomes thirsty, he is struck down to the floor, he cries out, Adrikni ya Abu Abdullah, oh Hussein, come to me, oh Hussein, receive me. Imam Hussein runs towards Habib, he takes the head of Habib in his lap. Imam Hussein bids farewell to Habib. What happens after Karbala is that all the heads are cut off the Shuhada, all the heads are put on the spears and the lances of the army of Yazid. Now when these spears are taken from Karbala, they are taken into Kufa, and when the son of Habib is in Kufa and he sees the head of his father on the spear, he begins to cry and lament. He makes such a noise that the army of Yazid is forced to take down the head of Habib, and they give the head of Habib into the arms of his son. The son caresses the head, he kisses the head. I turn my thoughts to Zainul Abidin, who had to see the head of Hussein, who had to see the head of Abbas, who had to see the head of Akbar being taken from Karbala to Kufa, from Kufa to Sham, and in Sham Yazid placing the head of his father onto the tray and hitting it with the cane, breaking the teeth of Abu Abdullah, breaking all of the skin of Abu Abdullah. Allah la'natullahi al-qawmi al-zalimeen. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلَبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. Oh Allah, we raise our hands in dua to you on this night. Oh Allah, give us the courage, like the courage of Janab Habib. Oh Allah, forgive us our sins. Oh Allah, make our 12th Imam happy with us. Oh Allah, do ta'jeel in the faraj of our 12th Imam. Give us the tawfiq to be in the army of the 12th Imam. Oh Allah, we hear so many news stories at the moment of our Shia brothers and sisters being massacred and made shaheed all over the world simply because they are attending the majalis of Imam Hussein. Oh Allah, we ask you that you protect our brothers and sisters. Oh Allah, bring peace throughout the world. Oh Allah, the illegal governments which are out there, oh Allah, make them neast and nabood. Oh Allah, bless us in this month. Oh Allah, help our children to be like the children of Karbala. Oh Allah, help our youth to be like the youths of Karbala. Oh Allah, help our women to be like the women of Karbala. Oh Allah, make the adults like the adults of Karbala. Oh Allah, make our elders like this brilliant elder Habib ibn Madahir. Let us remember our marhumeen with Al-Fatiha.